In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern where we still have a lot of cooler air to discuss. Models and the National Weather Service are becoming a little bit more bullish on perhaps that cooler air extending a little bit further into September than we've thought in our previous few videos. So that's going to be a big discussion point today. You guys might be wondering, and I've kind of had thoughts about this as well. Like, we're talking about the cooler air every single day. Like, why am I not switching it up? And the reason is because we're actually in a very quiet pattern with basically nothing else to really discuss. Obviously, we go over everything happening around the nation every single video, but for the titles and thumbnails, there's nothing else really worth noting. So we're going to be going over that. And in the heart of the hurricane season, that's actually incredible news. So it's actually a really good thing that that's the biggest thing to discuss. Of course, we do have tropical activity ongoing, but most of that is not expected to at least imminently impact the United States. So we're looking at the tropics right now. We do see Tropical Storm Fernand has gone ahead and developed from this red area here that we've been monitoring. This is actually one that we originally thought had a chance to either move into the Gulf or up the southeast, but the pattern did not support that over time. And the trend was, continuously, eventually we were like, okay, it might follow something along the lines of what we saw with Aaron. And then it's trended even further east than that. So this one is just continuously over the past week trended further and further away from something that would impact the United States, to the point where now it's just surely an out-to-sea storm. Very unlikely that we even see coastal Canada impacted by this one in any major way, but we don't ever rule anything out, of course, but that is looking less and less likely as well. So really that leaves, and by the way, this one is expected to remain at tropical storm status for days, not really ever turning into a hurricane. And then eventually dissipating, of course, as it moves further and further northward. But this one further south is probably our biggest one that could pose a threat to the United States, but as of now, it's not even a huge threat itself. We stand at a 20% chance of development over the next 2 days and the next 7, so a relatively low chance of development. Of course, these tend to sometimes start out this way and then climb, so we're going to be watching this. But the models do tend to take this one over the Dominican Republic, over Cuba, which isn't super favorable considering those land masses, especially Haiti and Dominican Republic, have a lot of mountains, and those tend to break up these tropical systems as they're trying to develop. So we can see it right here on this GFS model that's moving, and it really struggles to ever really get its act together. If it trends further south, and let's say there's a little less land interaction, I could see the chances of this one developing go up. Or perhaps this is more unlikely than the southern track, but if it was to trend northward somehow, that also could lead towards more favorable conditions for development. But as of now, we're obviously grasping at straws to come up with any solution that would really lead to a developing system as of now. The Southern Caribbean is not known for being a great place for development, especially if we were to kind of take the middle route of what the National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center, for that matter, are thinking. It's going to be pretty close to South America here, which tends to be just a really bad place for tropical development. So I'm not leaning towards this one becoming a major threat or anything. We will monitor it, of course, but that's not a super huge threat as of now. It is a small one, and we will monitor it, but not a huge threat. So let's go ahead and move into some of our model guidance. Again, we'll talk about that cooler air. We'll also talk about the upcoming pattern as far as precipitation, but drier conditions is really a bigger concern. Drought, perhaps, in the east is a bigger concern than any excess precipitation. So let's move into that. Now, before we get into anything as far as precipitation, here is that 6 to 10 day temperature outlook as of today on the 23rd for August 29th through September 2nd. As you can see, the National Weather Service does expect cooler conditions during this time frame for a lot of the central and eastern states, with the heart of it being over like the lower Midwest, lower Ohio Valley, some of the deeper southeast, and then some of the southern mid-Atlantic as well. It's kind of the heart of this cooler air compared to normal, again, for that time frame. Looking at the 8 to 14 day temperature pattern, though, for the 31st through the 6th of September, we still expect cooler conditions for a lot of these areas. So we're going to be monitoring this very closely, but they've actually upped the percentage chance of below normal temperatures for these two time frames, not decreased, which typically, since we expect this cool down relatively soon, as they add more days, you would expect the percentage chance to go down if we were expecting a pattern flip, but they are actually increasing it, which tells me they're seeing something that leads them to believe this could last a bit longer. And I'm seeing stuff suggesting that as well, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But here's the past 5 days of temperatures. And we're showing this daily just to show you the transition from the warmer to cooler pattern. And today we've seen some big updates as we're starting to see warmer temperatures along the west here finally. We've been talking about this on the model guidance as being kind of one of the bigger puzzle pieces that's going to lead us to this cooler pattern. Of course, a lot of these central states and some of the even like Midwest and Great Lakes and Southeast states are still a bit warmer. That is going to change in a big way very soon. We do see, however, the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast are already pretty far below normal over the past 5 days. So from the 18th through the 23rd today, these areas have been cooler, and it's actually going to get even cooler as time goes on. With all that being said, let's move into some of this storminess before we dive into the upcoming temperatures. And we can already see the cool down moving in actually as of today. The peak of it we expect for Monday, Tuesday. So this weekend we're going to be basically transitioning into that pattern. By tomorrow afternoon on Sunday the 24th, it does look like a quite beautiful day. Again, a lot of warmth starting to work its way up the east here in general, or up the west better yet. And we see this jet stream is diving southward here over the central states, lifting a little bit over the east, but that is going to change as well. So the peak cool conditions are going to be right now for the Midwest and Great Lake locations for Sunday. We do see on this eastern end of this jet stream, we do see some scattered about showers and thunderstorms. This is fairly common as we get this kind of like lift in the jet stream. It's carrying up some of that humidity and moisture from areas further south. It's also interacting with some cooler, drier air that's moving in from the north. That just leads to a lot of instability. So keep that in mind as well. As we move this straight towards Monday on the 25th, things do dry up quite a bit in the east. That's going to be a theme in today's video, by the way. We do see the west is quite wet in this ridge pattern, which is interesting because typically ridges are associated with more high pressure and drier conditions, and cool downs are associated with more low pressure and storminess. We're actually seeing the opposite. We're seeing these warmer areas dealing with the most precipitation over time, and these cooler areas dealing with quite dry conditions. So this is a fairly interesting cool down. This isn't your typical one. It's actually very interesting. Tuesday the 26th, very, very similar. Again, nothing to really break down. As we move towards Wednesday on the 27th, same thing. The west is very active, especially the Rockies, but even some of your more further west locations. But in the east, very, very dry. Nothing really to discuss here. Thursday, here on the 28th, these same western locations are seeing storminess. We're starting to get the plains and lower Midwest involved with some more thunderstorm activity here by Thursday the 28th. So that is a little bit more active there, but still the coastal locations in the east are very quiet. Moving towards Friday on the 29th, we see a lot of this thunderstorm activity is flattening out more towards the Gulf states. So we're seeing a lot more activity down there. And in general, I'm calling for drier conditions, but these areas are actually going to stay pretty active for the most part, especially when compared to areas further northward. Keep that in mind as well. For Saturday the 30th, again, those Gulf states flourishing. The west has even dried up, but look at this. I mean, this is like no precipitation. This is just craziness. Sunday, here on the 31st, we see the deep southeast dealing with a little bit more widespread thunderstorm activity. This is 8 days from now, so I want to note that this is a good time to mention we don't really see the models calling for any tropical systems moving from the middle of the Atlantic towards the United States. Both the GFS and European at this point don't show that. They also don't show anything else like homegrown or anything, but there is a lot of activity in the Gulf and there is a lot of activity off the southeast. So I think at this point our greatest chance for tropical activity during the upcoming 15 days or so is going to be very close to the United States, seeing something kind of just develop off one of these frontal boundaries moving offshore. We see that fairly often, and honestly, I think that's going to be the best chance for tropical development coming up. I say that, but this previous active period of tropical activity that we've just seen came kind of out of nowhere and was not expected in the medium to long range. It just kind of popped up. So there's no telling that could happen again. That doesn't happen every time, but we can't completely rule out an active period of tropical activity, of course. Just wanted to mention that. Let's keep going. I'm going to move us straight towards Monday on the 1st of September. This will be the first day of meteorological fall, and we're now 9 days away from that. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. 9 days, I think maybe 8 days. I don't know. Yeah, that sounds better. As we move towards Tuesday here, the 2nd, again, very quiet for the majority of the United States. We do have this stacked column of thunderstorm activity happening across the plains. But again, most areas dealing with very dry, very quiet conditions. Wednesday on the 3rd here, again, seeing these same areas dealing with thunderstorms and showers. We also see this kind of cold front. This is more of a backdoor cold front coming straight from north to south, moving across eastern Canada. We have rich cold air there in eastern Canada. For this time frame, it is the long range, but interesting to note. By September 4th, which will be a Thursday here, we see the plains and Midwest once again flourishing, everywhere else not. Friday, finally, we're starting to see some of that activity moved eastward through a lot more of the Midwest and the deep south here. And then by Saturday, it looks like finally the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast are about to see precipitation for the first time in a while by Saturday the 6th. Also, even though it's the long range, it's worth noting there is a ton of activity in these areas. So again, don't be surprised if we do see 1 or 2 threats very close to the United States pop up as far as tropical activity, especially as we move into early September. And then the end of the model run is Sunday morning. Again, very dry, very quiet. Nothing's really changed here. So let's take a look at the total precipitation. And there is a lot for a lot of the west. Mostly these areas here, we're seeing a lot. So up and down the west, so that central and southern plains, and then the deep and southeast areas. But we are very dry for most areas here in the northern plains, upper Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast here. So let's look at the anomalies. And yeah, kind of just reflects what I was saying. Again, most areas in here are above average. We do see Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama there, especially the southern regions of those states. Very dry as well. But when you take this whole blob that I've drawn, we do see a lot of activity in numerous areas. So that is currently what's expected. But these northern areas, especially the Mid-Atlantic and Carolina coastlines, well, really most of the Carolinas, are extremely dry. Little to no precipitation over the next 15 days. For areas that are already in a little bit of a drought, this could worsen that. For areas that aren't in a drought, this could develop one. This is a long time to see little to no precipitation. Definitely a bit concerning to say the least. Now, as we take a look at these temperatures, again, this is as of today, we can already see this Arctic blast moving in from Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, parts of Wyoming, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, and even a little bit of Wisconsin. Ahead of it, we see there's already some stagnant, cooler air for the Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, South Central states as well. There's already some cooler conditions around. The biggest feature here that's going to lead towards all of this motion is the warmer air we were discussing earlier, located over the west. We call this a positive PNA, and it really forces a lot of this cold to move eastward. As time goes on, we see this cool down. This is by Monday afternoon. We're really seeing it move in for the plains, further east, further south here. Many different areas seeing this cooler air by this point on Monday the 25th. And if not, it looks like by Tuesday, most everywhere except for the Gulf Coast will be seeing this much cooler air. I say much cooler because it is much cooler. The greens, which is more areas than not within the cool down, is 10 to 15 degrees below normal. Substantial. We even see some purplish blues in there, which is 15 to 25 degrees below normal. Even more substantial. I've been saying this for a little while, but the 10 to 15 degrees below normal is about 1 month from now's average temperatures. So you're looking at late September temperatures in the greens. And then those purplish blues are about 2 months ahead of schedule. So we're looking at like mid to late October temperatures for some of those purplish blue areas. Very, very cold compared to normal. Of course, it's not going to literally be frigid outside during the daytime in late August, but it is going to be much cooler than what's typical. Very fall-like. Wednesday's the same way. Thursday the 28th, we really just see this cooler air stick around. And then we start to see some warmer air moving in for Sunday on the 31st, and it's like, okay, well, this might be the end. The only thing that's leading me to believe it's not is we still have the very warm air in the west, which typically means the cooler air is going to continue to trend into the east. And then we get this pocket of cooler air here in eastern Canada. This looks to try to move in a formation that we typically call a backdoor cold front. A lot of our cooldowns typically come from northwest of us, like central Canada, or even western Canada, and just kind of move across into the central and eastern states. But when they come from these eastern areas and move more westerly, something like that, that is when we tend to see some interesting cooldowns. And we actually get one of those right here, where cooler air is moving in from that area all the way through September 3rd. Warms up again, but look, we've got this next area of cooler air trying to flirt its way in to a lot of these northeastern locations, maybe even the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley would be interesting to know. The GFS model, maybe even a little bit more bullish on this cooler air. Again, widespread greens. This is Wednesday the 27th. Widespread purplish blues. This is really substantial. More substantial backdoor cold front there in the northeast. Really just staying cooler. This is Thursday, September 4th. And then we get another major backdoor cold front for the 7th, 8th, leading us to seeing a full first week of September that's below normal for a lot of these areas. By this point, there is still some question marks. There's some cooler air and warmer air in the west. Which one will be the more dominant one? Obviously, it's 15 days out, so there's a lot of time for that to go back and forth. We're going to keep watching it. But it's definitely something we're going to keep our eyes on and keep you guys updated on, because again, it is kind of the biggest thing going on in the weather for now. So with all that being said, be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.